Hello, hello. It is so great to be back. And I am really excited for our next guest today. As you will see, it's just me today. We're sad that Kris is sick, but I will be leading the conversation with our guest, Lindsey McInerney. And Lindsey is a trailblazing technologist, futurist, and the founder and CEO of Black Sun Labs. With a career spanning hypergrowth startups, Fortune 500 companies, and even advising the royal family and the United Nations, Lindsey has established herself as one of the world's leading voices in emerging technology. She's a pioneer in the Metaverse and Web3 space, and Lindsey has launched groundbreaking projects, including the Stella Artois Award-nominated debut of the Metaverse, which is so cool. She's named to the Thinkers50 Radar List and recognized as one of the 30 most influential people in the Metaverse. Lindsey is passionate about helping leaders harness the transformation of power of AI, blockchain, and immersive worlds to shape a better future. Today, she is joining us to share her vision of how AI and frontier technologies are unlocking a new era of creative imagination. So please join me in welcoming Lindsey McInerney. So hello, Lindsey. It's great to see you.
Jenny, it's great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I am so excited to dive right in and ask you all of the questions. And so we'll go ahead and get started. My first question for you is kind of like going back to the beginning. What sparked your fascination with cutting edge technology and futurism? And was there a specific moment or experience that maybe set you on this path?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been a nerd, I've always been a nerd. And the internet, I fell hard for the internet really early on. It gave me a place to connect with other people just like me, incredibly early. And, when I was living in community that didn't maybe have or the host of interests that I had. And so, genuinely it's stuff like connecting with people in and around Buffy the Vampire Slayer chat rooms and recognizing that technology's power to bring people together, to connect around small niche topics, to mobilize people. It was sort of love at first sight, and the rest is history. As I started going in, further and further, I realized that, while the internet provided all of these ways to connect and mobilize, there were other technologies where we could understand what was going on in and around those
Mhm.
topics. And I fell in love with the software side of things, helping people tell richer, better stories through data, helping people reach the niche communities and audiences that they wanted through new technologies, and really, seeing how all the new and different ways people could embrace new technology to find each other and, express themselves and be expressive in ways that they couldn't otherwise. So, I suppose I come at it from a bit more of like a humanity perspective. I'm always interested in the societal impact of technology, but really always around how it helps people connect and be more themselves.
It's such an amazing mindset you have on technology. And I know we're going to get into this more, that I think a lot of people at times are maybe scared of what's to come. And I just love like the positive impact you see from it and how much of a humanitarian impact it can have as well. It's pretty.
Totally. And it's not to say that, technology hasn't had its faults.
Mhm.
Every new technology that's introduced is just a tool.
Mm.
And, a tool can be used for good things and for bad things. The tool itself is sort of net neutral, but I'm always focused on how we can pick it up and get building and, and do greater good. And
Mm.
there's just so much opportunity, no question.
Going off of that, you have worked with some incredible entities. Like I was saying when introducing you, from the royal family to Fortune 500 companies. What's been the most surprising or transformative project you've worked on to date?
Gosh, I mean, it's so hard to pick one. I think the place where I always find the most interest is where folks are really ready and prepared to open their minds
Mhm.
and be surprised themselves.
Mm.
Where they take a curious approach and an approach where they're ready to learn, to do something different than they have been doing, like they've either been stuck or they are curious but nervous. And I most especially like partnering with folks where, one of the things I'm passionate about is making technology simple. And what I find is, you get into a room, for example, with maybe marketers, and there's a new technology and it seems really complicated. And of course, people often like to use jargon and complex terms to describe things because it makes themselves feel clever and it makes them feel like it's an exclusive space. And the best rooms I walk out of are ones where you've been able to take that and lower the bar for everybody. And now everyone knows what's going on and how it might apply to them. And so, I do that like with lots of folks, whether it is, the royal family or other sort of, influencers or personalities, but also large corporates going, God, we know AI is going to be huge. We know blockchain is going to be massive, but like also not really sure where to come at that and how that intersects with marketing or with whatever we're looking at. And those are always the fun ones when you can help people make real change they thought perhaps wasn't even possible, but with an open mind and some curiosity, you're able to coach them through it. It's a blast.
That is a really cool point. Just working with people that are open to the possibilities, that can really change the outcome.
No, it's the dream. It's the absolute dream, and I think I'm teaching a class right now at McMaster University called The Future of the Internet. And I've got a class of young people, and that's the skill that they show up with that I don't always see in adults. It's like we become jaded when we enter the workforce, when we learn that our boss or people in the organization we're working for have vested interest in having things not change, and students haven't been jaded that way yet, so they're so optimistic, they're so open-minded, they're so curious, and it makes me so hopeful when I see who's going to be coming up in the workforce next and how open-minded they are.
Let's talk about that. I wanted to ask you, how do you see the integration of AI shaping future industries like art, music, education? And I thought it was fascinating what you were telling me about how you've developed this new course and you're really utilizing AI for assignments and everything. Is this the same course or is this different?
Yeah, this is the same course. So it's a second year humanities course at McMaster, which is a university based in Canada. And I redeveloped it over the holidays. It's the course is called The Future of the Internet, and I've taught it previously, but redeveloped it over the holidays because the way that I see things and the way that AI is moving, it's very likely that it will become our new interface on the internet. Today, it's very search engine based. We have a question, we want to initiate a search for something, we go to a Google or something like it, we type our question or query in, and we are given links where we need to click through and find the information we're looking for and which link is the most appropriate. And more, I believe we're going to see a transition to AI agent or AI-based discovery on the internet. So the main interface on the internet, more and more will be things like, yes, ChatGPT or Gemini or Anthropic or whatever tool you're using. And if that was the case, I felt like I'd be doing students a disservice by not digging in. The challenge that I have and had is that largely right now, AI is still sort of, it's a new topic, it's emerging. We don't really know what to do with it in lots of cases, whether you're at a corporation, whether you're in education. And so a lot of people are attempting to just ban it from students. They don't want them to use it. And I don't want students to prompt ChatGPT, for example, to give me an essay on the topic I've asked for either. And so what we're doing instead is we're using AI in every lecture and on every assignment to develop critical thinking skills. And that is where I'm seeing a lot of success so far. More and more students and people are going to be responsible for their own learning. And what I mean by that is, if you don't want to do something, it's going to be pretty easy to ask an AI agent to operate and do that task for you soon. Even now, right? Like a student could probably develop enough essays and enough output to pass a university course without actually doing much. But the quality is going to be subpar. And what you walk away with as a learner is going to be nothing. And in this world where we will be interacting with AI agents more and more, we're going to need core skills like critical thinking. We're going to need the ability to be creative, to be inspired, to imagine, to dream. And those things are going to be the skills that allow us to work alongside technology rather than having it work for us. And so, we're using it to develop those critical thinking skills. We're not just asking it to give us an essay. The students are iterating with it and playing with it. They're falling down rabbit holes and coming up with more interesting information and angles on topics. They're having, counter debates with an AI where they ask it to take a different position. And actually, really, I think probably most heartwarmingly, the students all handed in topics for their final project for me that were so much more personalized than any other topics I've ever had. And that's because they took the topic it had to be on, internet's impact on society, and they
Mhm.
kind of gave it their own personal interest and went like, please, for the love of God, help me find something that intersects. And the projects have been incredible. Some of them writing on, women's health, some of them writing on pop culture, this, that, and the other. But, the experience of going ahead and doing that project is going to be so much richer, and they're going to be so much more committed to it because it's something that came from here that genuinely interests them. So it's iterative, it's real time. I tell the class we're all pioneering what this looks like, but so far it's been really amazing.
That's fascinating. I mean, I think back to when I was in school, and so much of it was just memorize and then
Yeah.
forget facts, whereas the critical thinking and really taking the time to understand something. And I love your shift of the mindset of AI can actually help people be more creative. And I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you about that. That's one of my favorite beliefs that you've shared is that AI will unlock new realms of creative imagination. Can you share an example of how you're seeing this happen already and really what you mean by that concept?
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, I think the very way that AI works, meaning if you think of all of human knowledge as being contained inside a box, that's what AI is working from, right? Like it can only work from the information, so right today anyways, that we've given it. And it will come up with, associative pieces of information, generative I will, that like resembles this piece of information and this piece of information, but sort of, and it kind of feels new, but it was really based on these, other two pieces that we've got. Um, which means it's very good at things like science, it's very good at things like math, it's good at predicting, the right answer. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily today giving us that outside the box thinking, and that is, I think, what makes us completely truly human, is that we have all of these other experiences in life, things like serendipity and spontaneity, lived experience, relating, these kinds of things that make us really human. And those are sort of the things that we want to start refining. So the question becomes, how do you spend more time practicing those skills, becoming more imaginative, becoming more creative, more dreamy, more inspired, that kind of thing. And it's not going to be doing iterative tasks when an AI agent can do that for you. And I don't care what creator you are, there's no question, there are parts of your day that are kind of boring. You don't really want to do them, whether it's your accounting, whether it's your email, whether it's whatever. And so, if we get this right and optimistically, there
Mhm.
will be a good portion of our lives, no matter who we are, that we will be able to outsource to AI, the boring stuff, the bits that doesn't get us out of bed in the morning, so we can focus more on the stuff that does. And in addition to that, the things that will become more valuable are going to be exactly those tasks. It's not going to be the mundane. It's going to be the creative that becomes, being genuinely uniquely human is going to be the output that is more required of us because it's the thing that makes us unique. And so, my hope and my optimism hopes that that we actually are able to become more creative and spend more time in that creative bubble that we all love so much, because we don't have to think about some of these other things.
That is such a cool view, and I see it even in my day to day is I have really embraced utilizing AI for those it's augmented my day.
Yeah.
What, would have taken me half of my day to just get through the mundane, now it's completely opening my day for the bigger thinking, which I felt like I never had enough time for before. So, I love your mindset on that and how that can not only unlock a person, but really enhance creativity across the board.
That's the goal. I will say there's, the one caution point I have and something I'm encouraging people to think about now. And I'll give you an example is I'm cautioning people to consider what parts of our lives we're not happy to outsource to AI because we don't want to lose that internal muscle memory.
Mhm.
And I give the example of, when I was 17 or 18, I ended up in Paris for the first time. And within a couple days, I had no mobile phone, didn't exist. Internet cafes you could go to. I didn't have a map. I had to map everything in my mind. And so within a couple days, I knew where I was and could navigate my way around Paris based on, Sacre-Coeur's here, Notre Dame's here, Eiffel Tower's here, River Seines here. And I kind of knew my way around. And,
Mhm.
fast forward, I've been living in the UK for 11 years. I'm in new cities all the time, and I use Waze, City Mapper, Google Maps, Apple Maps, And I've lost that part of my brain. I have let it atrophy straight up. Like, I do not have this ability to topographically map a city as quickly and as efficiently as I did before to really know where I am the same way. And if I went back in time, I'd probably make the same choice. Maps have made it unquestionably easier, you know? And also, if we start outsourcing loads of our life to agents to support us in our work, the question becomes, which of those skills are we going to regret not having in the future? And which ones are we actually going to be completely okay with? So the downside of some of this, or the gotcha, the watch out, is, I think, carefully considering which parts you don't want to lose. And that's where I encourage, my students, my clients, to make sure you're not giving away your critical thinking. You are still you are still in charge, and you want to partner with the machine and not have it run your life. You want to have the machine make your life better. That's what it's here to serve us. So we have to be a little bit thoughtful there, but I am really optimistic that we'll figure it out.
That's a great point. And you are known for helping executives and your clients dream big. And what's the first question you ask leaders when they're exploring the future of their business with you? Like, how do you navigate that kind of in these varying different realms with your
Yeah, look,
clients?
I think the first thing, and actually is probably the hardest thing to do, is
Mhm.
to get people to think about the future without any of the existing barriers that they perceive to be in place to
Mm.
be there, right? So if you've been at a company for 10, 15, 20 years, there's just some things that are hard to do because of the way the company operates, because of systems that are in place, whatever else. Like, how do we actually get folks to dream big enough? It's getting people to dream bigger that is often challenging. They know they have to be able to do things like adopt AI or other technology, but I find there's often this ceiling on how big they'll allow themselves to dream because of how big they believe they can take it. And
Mm.
so the hardest part, honestly, and right at the beginning, is sort of figuring out if absolutely anything was possible. We took out every system, every structure, every bad manager, everything else. Like, what would you do if you could dream as big as possible? What does that look like? And that's a hard task because of, we all get into these roles where we have an expected output. We know it gets the job done, etc. We know that there's friction, and it may not necessarily be within our capability or even job title or role to change. But when we can start to think bigger, and outside that stuff, oftentimes the change isn't as hard as we imagined. We kind of get trapped in our own boxes and in our own minds of what the big problems really are.
That's a great point. As you were saying it, it was making me think, wow, it's like here we are talking about how AI is within the box and we need to do the critical thinking outside the box because that's what makes us human. But there are times I resonate with that, even in my own company. If you kind of constantly see these barriers or restrictions, then you start to put yourself and
Totally.
your company in a box. And I hadn't thought about it like that, but
Yeah.
you are really helping these individuals just remove those barriers and start thinking about how to dream big enough.
Yeah, like, it's just, like, making sure we don't accept mediocrity because it's so easy to fall into that. We
Mhm.
all do it, but, there's never as many limits that are actually there as we perceive there to be, and
Um,
yeah, working outside our own mind is a challenge.
Very cool. With that, you've been a leader also in exploring the metaverse and Web3. How do you
Yeah.
see these technologies evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see? Where do you see those going?
Well, look, I think there's no question in my mind that the way we access the internet is changing.
Mm,
I think people are tired of the two-dimensional news feeds. I think that a lot of the things that the original internet was developed for are sort of broken, right? The original internet was an incredibly radical idea. It was to be completely democratic, and there's always gonna be challenges in that, but that it was intended to be, incredibly uniting um, and democratizing in how people accessed information. And we've evolved to a point now where we're operating in a corporate internet,
mm,
and we're seeing some of those challenges play out in real time now with Elon Musk, with Mark Zuckerberg, with censorship, with freedom
mhm,
of speech, with debating what those even mean. And the internet's not as fun a place as it used to be. And I don't think it
Mhm.
has to stay that way. We have this really interesting moment in time where I think technology is meeting us in a place where we actually can be more immersive. And a lot of these statistics on games are very interesting. I think we're spending a lot of time right now debating what the term metaverse means and whether there will be a metaverse or not. And we're missing the real point, which is that the internet's evolving
Mhm.
and people are spending more and more time in immersive spaces. Call them whatever you want. It may be called metaverse, it may not. We don't call it the information superhighway anymore either. So I don't care if it's metaverse or not. But these more immersive spaces that allow people to really fully experience a brand, a community, a culture, that sort of thing, and meet people and play and live and create. Like those spaces are taking off, and I think a lot of what the gaming community does really well, which is incredibly immersive, is bring back a
Mhm.
lot of the fun in connection and connecting and community that's disappeared from places like Facebook and these other spots on the web that, started out with one vision and have ended up with another.
It's so cool. And speaking of that, can you talk a little bit about the Stella Artois debut
Yeah,
in the metaverse? Just speaking
yeah,
of helping
definitely.
brands get there.
Yeah, so this I mean, it's when this one starts is starting to see the space moves so quickly, it's starting to seem like, almost ancient history, but, it was only a couple years ago, I was at InBev and one of the largest I was the global head of technology and innovation. I was
Mhm.
responsible for figuring out what the big pieces of technology were that we should bring to the company. One of the
Mm,
largest changes I saw happening is and was in how the internet's moving and working. And
mm,
so I'd written a thesis on the future of the internet, looking at where crypto, immersive worlds, metaverse, blockchain, that kind of thing intersect with, with more average users, the everyday users. And kind of had this thesis that we were moving to more immersive worlds and wanted to explore what that would look like for a brand. So I formed a partnership with a crypto horse racing game called Zed Run. At the time,
mm,
horses were selling for the price of cars, like $50,000, which is
mm,
kind of bananas in hindsight. But it it really helped to connect Stella Artois and who Stella Artois was in reality with who they could be aspirationally digitally. And what I
mm,
mean by that is in reality, Stella Artois is a premium beer, sponsor
mhm,
of premium sporting events, and Zedrun was a premium sporting event in virtual worlds. So it didn't seem like too big a leap to
mhm,
believe that consumers would expect us there, that they would
mm,
embrace us there, and that they might enjoy us being there. And so, very similar to how we perform in the real world, which is one of my large theses for immersive spaces, is that in a lot of ways, metaverse will parallel reality.
mm,
We showed up similarly to how we show up in the real world, um, and it went over incredibly well. We sold the 50 horses in 5 days for over $1 million. We
wow.
noticed that consumers were willing to place a premium on the Stella Artois branded horses. And in addition, we had on in two dimensions, we had been building this campaign for years called the Life Artois. And it was this creamy dreamscape, beautiful world that we were actually able to allow people to fully immerse themselves in for the first time. So designed a racetrack that completely had this look and feel. And so now instead of looking at a billboard or seeing an ad, they were fully in the Life Artois. So it was an absolute blast and really great to see the reaction to it from consumers, and and that they were they appreciated it. I think a
Mhm,
lot of the fear brands have when they go to jump into spaces like this is, are we just going to get our butts kicked? Are people going to hate us for being here? And it was a really real concern, but we really felt like if we approached it with, with some love
mhm.
and with the
Intention.
yeah, exactly, and the ethos and values of that community,
Mhm,
not jumping in there, to try and own it, but to try and complement it and make it a better place for everyone else, that
for sure.
we would be embraced, and we were. It was an absolute blast.
That is so cool. Yes, that's thank you for sharing a little bit about that. I feel like that is such a great example of how to be aligned and, in reality and in virtual reality. Okay, want to, with our next 5 minutes or so, ask you some future thinking questions.
Sure.
What role do you see for collaboration between humans and an AI in addressing more like bigger global challenges like climate change or
Yeah.
inequality, or just how do you see those working together?
Well, I think the crazy thing to consider that didn't exist even 2 years ago is that everybody now has an assistant in their pocket with an IQ of 124 plus, right?
Mhm.
So, I think about how it allows me to do bigger, deeper, bolder work already because I have a partner in crime, like a pretty smart partner in crime, you know?
Great partner, yeah,
Um
absolutely.
And if you think about putting these kinds of tools in the hands of some of the most brilliant people and having them, understand how to use them and how to
Mm,
bring them in at the right time, I can only assume we're going to find smarter solutions faster that didn't make sense. And we see this, like, the simplest way to look at this, I think, is in things like early cancer detection, right? Where, gosh, you can have the best oncologists in the world, but what we're finding now is that actually, when you feed an AI model thousands of pictures of breast tumors or potential breasts
mhm,
that might have tumors, they're actually picking them out faster and earlier
mhm,
than even the oncologist. It doesn't mean that they have the everyday care to know how to treat that patient or do all those other things.
mhm.
There's definitely still a huge place for oncology, but when you can access some of the world's greatest information, you can think like a politician, a climatologist, a biologist, a technologist all at once, which is effectively what AI is doing. It allows you to be sort of a mini expert in all of these areas at once. Like, I can only be hopeful about what kind of solutions lie in front of us.
So cool. That is a really great point. We all have the smartest assistant at our fingertips to
It's
help
pretty
us.
cool.
So, in your opinion, is there a technology that we're not talking about enough that has the potential to make an impact? Is there something you're seeing on the horizon that we should be paying closer attention to?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, everyone's talking about, not everyone. I think we are not talking about next, or what we'll talk about next probably is like quantum
Mm,
computing. I think we're not like average folks that interface with technology daily. Um, Maybe we've not talked enough yet about, the compute power that it's going to take to get here. I always
mhm,
wish we were talking more about climate impact and how we can still move forward and progress, like, with at light speed with technology, but
mm.
also thinking about the only world we have here, right? Like, metaverse or not, other worlds or not, like, this is the most important place we have. And I would love to see some of these conversations be more balanced with how we make sure that this one right here is like the best place that we
Mm,
have or continues to be, because it is, right? Like,
mhm.
and this goes where we're all in trouble. So, I'd love to see more conversations around technology in general. Have the climate at the forefront. It's incredibly important.
Absolutely. And my last question for you is what's one message or insight that you hope people take away
Mm.
from your work and what they have heard today and will hear when they hear you speak?
I think the biggest piece is to be curious, right? Like, we are only limited by our own imagination, and the way life is, sometimes it's hard to get into that creative, imaginative space.
Mhm.
But if we approach whatever technology or whatever problem we're trying to solve with curiosity, with imagination, I know we'll all find more creative, interesting solutions, and it's just, let yourself go, just play and be curious.
I couldn't agree more, and that was a big takeaway for me today of when I asked you, like, what is that big question you're asking, the clients that you're working with? And I mean, the most important thing is for them to be open first and to really, like, unlock that thinking potential, that
Yeah,
creative potential. So that's so exciting to hear and also very tangible for people of like, this is how we start. It's just being open.
yeah.
Everyone can, do that.
There's always more to explore.
Oh, so cool. Well, this has been fascinating. I have so many takeaways that I'm excited to go share and shout from the rooftops. But thank you so much, Lindsay, for taking some time to talk with me today. Behind the mic, it's exciting to learn more, and this really helps our clients hear more before they get to have you on their own stage. So I really
Thanks so much.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Channing. Really grateful and appreciate you having me.
Awesome. All right. Well, until next time, thanks so much.
Cheers.